the corporate counsel.
Yeah, I know. I know.
You want to maybe tout that direction.
But corporate counsel can smell a line of BS a mile away.
sure
That's
can.
why I'm not going to sit here and try to butter him up.
Well,
Ron Blumberg, one of my best friends, is the best BS
Esquire.
detector I've ever met in my life.
It was 3 though, so there's 4 here, so I could be excluded. It could be
No,
you 3 beautiful.
oh, he shouldn't be talking about himself like that. Look, you got a shiner. What happened there?
I had, you know, the Mohs procedure when they carve cancerous
No,
cells.
it's like when a right hook just mows through you.
Yeah, yeah.
No, it's like a scraping.
Yeah.
Instead of
Thank
dig,
you,
it's
sir.
Scrape instead of dig.
Scrape,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
scrape,
You
and
look tougher.
scrape.
You look
and then-
tougher.
That's right.
You look like you're from the 40s.
Yeah.
Mind if I wear Mark? That's what you
My
look like.
wife likes to
Like
say,
Cinderella,
Mike,
man.
Meg, my wife likes to say, Mike finally wised up.
Did you see? He goes, I had the Mohs procedure. That's
Yeah.
isn't that what they used to do before they used to fight?
That's right.
Ron Blumberg is here.
I almost cut my finger off this morning cutting an apple, and I never use a cutting board.
Yeah, I don't either.
And
I just
so
use.
my-
Why can't I just use our foreheads?
No, I just use my hand and my wife, so my nickname is Moron because we have Band-Aids in the kitchen. And I'm not joking.
That's so smart,
That
though.
scares me because it makes me think
I
I
would never use a cutting board, and I'm constantly slicing up my fingers. And this one, it's still, see that? That was 4 hours.
Sue somebody.
Still
Yeah.
oozing.
Hey, I want to. Ron, of course, Bloomberg Law. Ron is a fantastic attorney. He's a trial lawyer. He's a transaction attorney. He's a business lawyer. He's a damn good friend of mine. At the same time, though, it's interesting. I'm watching you and how you think these days and how you approach things, because it's not just Mike went like this and accidentally poked me in the eye.
Right.
It goes much further than that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And a lot of business, in my opinion, is when people start a relationship in the name of good business. We want to do things together. Let's put it in writing in case one of us gets hit by a truck. But in reality, that's not really why you're putting it together. You're putting it together in case there's a dispute later on down the road. And it's not as simple as one might think. Talk about some of the provisions that need to be in a contract to protect people from that type of stuff.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it, and what we, as lawyers, we have to think, what's the worst case scenario? What could possibly go wrong?
Right.
And most people entering into relationships, they don't think like that. Family, friends, and what's going to go wrong? I love this person. Obviously, marriage is an example, and it's a contract.
Yeah.
So the contracts, there's a lot of provisions that we typically call boilerplate. So all the substance is one thing, and then you get at the end of these contracts what we call boilerplate. But some of those provisions are more important than even the substance of the contract. One thing I just had that I thought I'd share with you, Sully, is it's called choice of law. So in a contract, it could be a lease, it could be any contract you have, where will you adjudicate the dispute if there is a dispute?
So is there, you often see California or Delaware, let's say, because it's a state that people incorporate. That's what you're speaking in terms of.
Yes, and so an example is, and this is a crazy example. So I have a client, they import plastic bags for fruit in grocery stores from China, millions at a time, and there's no contract, but in the invoice, it says where the choice of law is. So we get the shipment of bags, and they're defective. The printing's off, and the bags are wrong, and he's got
paid for them. So
it's about well, we haven't paid yet, so this is the whole thing. So it's about $375,000 worth of bags. We get the invoice, and my guy says, "Ron, they're bad bags."
we own Vaughn's, not Ralph's.
Pretty much. Well, that was almost it. So
Right.
they spelled his name wrong.
Right.
Oh, geez.
So we have to. So what are we going to do? We owe $370,000. So what are we going to do? We're either going to pay him, which we're not going to do, and then sue, or we're going to withhold the money and not pay them and then get sued. Okay, so I said, let's get sued, right? So we're not going to pay them.
Right.
And sure enough, we get sued. We get sued in San Diego, and I'm looking for there's no contract, but on the invoice, it says where the choice of law is.
Is that a contract?
Yes, yeah.
So just if you've accepted in the past this invoice as a receipt or as a indicator of making a purchase,
Exactly.
that represents a contract. So it
Exactly.
doesn't have to be 6 pages with a couple of date line on it.
No, it can be anything that's there. But so the choice of law for this is the People's Republic of China.
Oh no.
And I thought what they wanted to do was to intimidate us and think, of course you're going to just pay because you don't want to get sued in China. And I said to my guy, I said, let's go to China.
Yeah.
And so we said,
Of course, this is how attorneys think, though, because all we're thinking of is just take care of it, Ron. I don't want to hear about it. Tell me it's going to be.
I don't care.
We're going to go to China. So I said, we're not going to pay. Let them sue us. And sure enough, they sued us in San Diego.
Now they messed up their choice of law there, right?
So we say what?
They messed up their own choice of location.
So it's
right?
exactly, but they put it there thinking that it would intimidate us so that we'd just pay. And I said, we'd be happy to litigate in China. And first of all, I said, they're not going to do it. And sure enough, so they sued us here in San Diego. I brought a motion, it's called a motion to quash because of what's called forum non-convenience, but it's the wrong forum. And this is the choice of law I was talking about. So we bring a motion, and the judge says, yeah, Ron, you're right, and she threw the case out.
And and by the way, when a case gets thrown out, is that like a conviction being, like some accusation being turned over? Can they bring back the
Yeah, no, it's not criminal double jeopardy. So they could do it again, but they'd have to do it in China. And sure enough, they didn't do it. So my guy just made $370,000.
with a bunch of bags that say Ralph's when he walks the bond?
Yeah.
Is that because the receipt or the invoice says that the bag specifically is supposed to say something that it did not, or?
Well, yeah, we had a purchase order for bags.
Which represented itself as a contract because that's all there was.
Correct, because that bound, and that made the parties have their obligations,
Gotcha.
right?
Ron, when someone domiciles, let's say in Delaware, and the reason people do that oftentimes is for privacy, okay? But if you're doing business in California, for example, and you domicile your corporation in Delaware, you also have to file with the state of California Department of Corporations and have, I think it'd be the same as dual citizenship, right?
Yeah, it's a foreign corporation that's doing business here in California.
What if are any of those venues inconvenient for litigation? Let's say you have two parties that incorporated in Delaware. Okay, one of them did it correctly and also incorporated in California. The other, who also resides in California, did not.
Yeah.
What does that do does that complicate things in a good or bad way?
Well, that's again, getting back to the question about in the contract. So that's why the definition of what the forum will be is so important. And if you don't have that, then you're going to be fighting about that alone, not about the substance of the dispute, about where we're going to do this. And then it comes down to, if it's a contract, it's where it was entered into, where it was to be performed, where the parties might reside. So there's all these different layers to that. So if the key to all of this, Sully, as you know, is we have to worry about the worst case scenario, plan ahead. And if the intent of the parties is clear, it doesn't matter what it is. But most of the disputes, these contractual disputes, is because they didn't take the time to specifically and accurately define what the intent of the parties is.
Even to the point where you guys have clauses that say, if one piece of this contract is deemed invalid, it doesn't invalidate the whole contract.
Correct.
Who would even think about that?
Yeah. So
I mean, but that you're thinking ahead there, or the entire, I think it's called entire agreement clause, or
that's
entire,
a severability clause.
So there you go. Yep. What do those mean exactly, and why are those important?
It's exactly it, because you can have 30 pages or 50 pages, 100 pages.
So you
of
can
a
sever
contract.
that piece out if it's invalid.
Yeah, but if you don't have that, and it's deemed a material aspect of the contract, then the other party could void the contract. It could be a voidable contract for one problem that really might not have anything to do with the rest of the dispute. So you have a severability clause that says if one clause is deemed invalid, it does not invalidate the entirety of the contract.
Ron, if you were to do a takeaway to a simple give-take agreement, I'm going to buy a potato for $1, he's going to give me a potato for $1. What in your mind are must-dos in an agreement situation? Because that invoice, that PO, didn't really have much other than how much it was going to cost, how much you're going to get, and where the law was. Didn't have any of that severability or entire agreement clause or anything like that. What do you think is, what's the go, no-go on something like this? Obviously, getting an attorney, getting a proper contractor, number one. Absent of that, though, if you could think about yourself, if you had a pen and a piece of paper in a short amount of time to get an agreement together, what would you include in that?
Well, the first thing is defining the intent, and so I would do that. You would talk about memorandums of intent or letters of intent, memorandum of understanding. The first thing is to just pen it out, just the bullet points, 1 through 10 or whatever, that really makes a difference to you. And then you can put that into the full contract. But if it's one thing that I would think about, and I talk about it a lot, is attorney's fees clauses in California especially.
Which is important, because it means the losing party's got to pay the other attorney fee.
Right, and it can be, if you don't have that, then you could have somebody like a tenant. If you don't have that, the tenant can screw with the landlord every day, all day long, especially in California, and they have nothing to lose. But if there's an attorney's fees clause in it, then it says that if you lose, the prevailing party will be entitled to reimbursement of attorney's fees.
Wow.
And if you don't have that, you don't get it. So it would be incentive one way or the other for someone either to pursue a suit or to walk away from it.
And in your mind, is that one of the reasons why attorneys will or won't take a case against a company? Because obviously they don't. I mean, your guys are business people too. If you don't know if you're going to get paid, That's got to be that's got to be a determining factor in whether you take a case or not.
Well, yes and no, but if it's an hourly case, which most of these contractual disputes would be, then the client would owe me the attorney's fees anyway. But then you would say as the client, if let's say it's a $30,000 dispute, a $50,000 dispute, but we're going to be litigating it for 2 years, and you're going to spend $50,000 on a lawyer, what's the point of doing it? If you don't have the attorney's fees clause in it, you lose all incentive to even pursue your claims.
Ron Blumberg for president. Does it feel safer?
100%.
I do. Thanks, buddy.
It's the face, right?
If I ever get into court and I see across the table it's Ron Blumberg, I'm like,
He better be next to you at the table.
Yeah, we'll
He
settle.
better be next to you at the table.
We'll settle. We'll settle, I swear.
Ron?
All right, keep it right here. Much more to come with The Big Biz Show. Don't go anywhere.